My estranged father came back after 23 years. Not for me, but for a custody battle over a daughter I didn't even know existed. You don't expect your past to knock. You expect it to text, or DM from a burner account, or show up as a people you may know suggestion with a photo that makes your stomach drop. Mine knocked. 3 times. Patient. Like it had all day. I was halfway through a Saturday ritual, laundry cycling, eggs scrambling, true crime podcast, murmuring about a suspect who seemed normal to neighbors. My apartment smelled like coffee, and the lemon cleaner, I pretend, means I have my life together. I opened the door, and time fell through it. "Hey, kiddo," he said, like we were picking up a conversation he'd only paused to answer the phone. My father, Mark, absent for 23 years, standing on my doormat in a denim jacket that didn't belong to this decade, holding a battered suitcase that did. The same light green eyes I see in the mirror when I'm too tired to lie to myself. The same awkward half smile I've practiced in photos since middle school. I didn't say his name. I said, "How did you find me?" He lifted the suitcase like a punchline. "White Pages still exists," he said. "Also, your aunt has a big mouth." He waited for a laugh. He didn't get one. The podcast narrator in my kitchen said he was known for his charm, and I almost barked a laugh at the timing. I should give context. I'm 31. I live in a rent-controlled one-bedroom outside Denver that I treat like a fragile miracle. I'm a copywriter, which means I spend my days naming lip balms and trying to make the word soothing feel new. My mother raised me. My father did not. He left when I was 8, right after the kind of fight where plates break and a child learns new words for quiet. He sent one birthday card, Power Rangers, signed Dad. One letter, apology that read like a resume, and then nothing. I learned to answer the "Do you have any siblings?" question with a joke. I learned to call other men Coach, Mr., Sir, and never Dad. I learned that missing someone you don't know is a specific kind of pain. And I tuned myself to a life where he was an outline, not a person. And there he was, breathing. "Can I come in?" he asked, glancing past me at the lemon clean and the plants I'm too proud of. He patted the suitcase. "Stuff." I put my hand on the door like it was a leash. 2 minutes, I said. Then we figure out the rest. He walked in like a tourist in a museum of my adulthood, touching nothing, eyes moving over everything. The framed photo of me and Mom at Red Rocks, the thrifted dresser with a drawer that sticks, the magnetic poetry on the fridge that spells out, "Be kind to small mornings." "You look like your mother," he said, then corrected himself. "You look like you." "What do you want?" I asked, because I am 31, and therapy has taught me to push the movie forward. He set the suitcase by the couch. "To say I'm sorry," he said, "and to ask for your help." There it was, the string, still coiled. I could almost hear it unspooling. "Help with what?" I said. My voice sounded like a substitute teacher trying to command respect with attendance. He took a breath. "Can I take you to lunch? It's a lot, and you shouldn't hear it standing in a doorway." I thought about saying no. I thought about shutting the door and letting the past knock on someone else's Saturday. Instead, I grabbed my keys, texted my best friend Noah a single line, "He's here," and followed my father down the stairs to a world that suddenly had too much oxygen. We went to a diner 2 blocks away because I needed public, fluorescent lights, and a waitress who would call me Han and refill the silence with coffee. He ordered pancakes. I ordered a grilled cheese because I wanted to be 8 and safe. He talked first. He said my mother was a good woman. He said he was a coward. He said the worst thing a person can do is leave, and then he did it. He said rehab twice and recovery once. He said he's been in and out of both. He said he's been clean a while. I asked, "How long?" He said, "Longer than the last time." Not an answer. A slogan. Then he said the part that flipped my stomach. "I need a place to stay," he said. "Just for a week or 2. I don't have anyone else." I stared at the plate where my grilled cheese had become sculpture. "You do," I said, thinking of the timeline he'd sketched. Girlfriends, jobs, programs, halfway houses, states. They just aren't picking up. He tried on a rueful smile. "You always this sharp." "Since I learned what dull gets you," I said, before I could be polite. He nodded like a man who had a coming to Jesus with a mirror once and still only told half the truth. "I get it," he said. "You owe me nothing, but I owe you everything. So I'm asking." I could hear Noah's voice in my head. "Boundaries are how you love your future self." I could hear Mom's voice, too. He'll talk like he's changed. Maybe he has. You don't have to be the judge. Why now? I asked. Why this minute of this life? He looked out the smeared diner window like the answer might be in the traffic. My landlord died, he said. New owner tripled rent. I got priced out. I've been staying at a friend's place, but he relapsed. I can't be there, and it's cold, and I wanted to try to make something right before. He stopped, like the end of that sentence was a cliff. Before? I said. Before it's too late, he said, and finally looked at me. The green of those eyes is a trick. You expect warmth. You get C. I could have said no. I should have said no. I told him yes, because I am a person who thinks they can outrun regret if they move fast enough. 1 week, I said. Couch. Clear boundaries. No drinking in my apartment. You leave if I say leave. He nodded, relief swallowing him whole. Deal. You won't regret it. I already did. I also didn't. That's the thing about choosing kindness at your own expense. It feels like sainthood and self-harm in the same breath. We walked back to my building, a father and son practicing the choreography of strangers. Noah called before we hit the stairs. I answered on speaker because I wanted my father to hear a voice that belonged to my life. Is this a prank? Noah said without hello. No, I said. Do you want me to come over with a bat, a casserole, or both? Stand by, I said. I'll text a code word if he starts quoting Facebook memes. Noah snorted. What's the code word? I looked at my father's suitcase, at the scuffed corners, at the sticker that said, San Diego in faded airport font. Luggage, I said. Perfect, Noah said. If you need me, say the word. I hung up. My dad said, good friend? The best, I said. Wouldn't have pegged you for a casserole guy, he said, trying for lightness, trying to be in on a joke that wasn't his. I contain multitudes, I said. Let's go. Back upstairs, I laid out rules like a landlord with a clipboard. He listened, nodded, said, of course, and absolutely, and I won't let you down, enough times to make my skin itch. He showered. I made up the couch with my old quilt, the one my mother sewed from college t-shirts and promises. I put my wallet in the drawer, not because I thought he'd take it, but because I remembered the 8-year-old who watched quarters go missing and was told ghosts love laundry rooms. He came out of the bathroom in clean jeans and a borrowed t-shirt that said, be brief, be bold, be gone. A conference freebie I suddenly wanted back for the symbolism. His hair was damp, gray threading through like lightning veins. He looked small, older than I imagined, younger than he had any right to be after everything. We ordered pizza like a parody of reconciliation. He told me stories that started with, you were so little when, and your mom used to. And I learned small truths that felt like someone had updated my origin story without asking. That I was born during a thunderstorm, that I wouldn't sleep unless the vacuum was on, that my father fainted when I got my first vaccine, and then pretended he'd been checking the floor. I laughed against my will. He smiled like a man who just juggled and didn't drop the balls. At 10:30, he yawned big. I'm wiped, he said. He pulled the quilt up, patted the pillow like it was a dog, and said, thanks, kiddo. Really? I stood there in the doorway of my own living room and felt 8 and 31 at once. Good night, I said. We'll talk in the morning. I turned off the light and went to my bed and stared at the ceiling for a long time. I thought about my mother and whether I would tell her. I thought about the suitcase and what was in it. I thought about the way he'd said help and whether it meant what he said it meant. I fell asleep to the sound of someone else breathing in my apartment. It felt like a miracle and a mistake. At 2:18 a.m., I woke up thirsty, walked to the kitchen, and stopped. The zipper on the suitcase was open. Inside were clothes, a framed photo of me as a toddler with pudding on my face. Where'd he even gotten that? And 2 envelopes. One fat, one thin. The fat one said, past due. The thin one said, notice of appearance. I didn't open them. I'm not a snoop. I'm a coward who likes to pretend that counts as virtue. I closed the zipper, poured water, and stood at the window watching a drunk couple argue under a streetlight. Their fight slid up through the night like a balloon losing air. My father snored once, a small human sound. I went back to bed and didn't sleep much. In the morning, the envelopes weren't on top anymore. The suitcase was closed like a secret. My father made eggs, overcooked, and coffee, strong, and said, let's do something normal today. Baseball? Groceries? Yell at traffic? I'm flexible. I said, we can go see Mom. He froze, then nodded. Okay, he said. Okay. He washed the pan like a man trying to earn a grade. I texted my mother. Can I come by? Not alone. She replied with my name and 3 dots. Then, here, coffee on. Her restraint is a superpower. We rode in my dad's borrowed truck from a friend named Hector, a name that would become a harbinger, across the city to the small ranch house where I grew up, pretending everything was fine, because kids are Olympians at pretending. Mom opened the door. Time did its trick again. She looked good, grayer than last year, stronger too. She looked at me first, then at him, then at me again to make sure I was choosing this, not being dragged by it. Hi, Mark, she said, voice steady like a bridge. Hi, Julie, he said, voice small like a confession. We sat at the kitchen table where I learned to write cursive, and my mother learned how to be alone. The lemon cleaner smell was the same. The magnets on the fridge had migrated. The photo of me at graduation had migrated closer to the coffee maker like a trophy. Why now? Mom asked. Same as me. Less curiosity, more calculus. He gave the same answer. Landlord, friend, cold. Sorry. Before it's too late. She listened, nodded, said nothing for a long time. Then, he can stay on your couch a week, she said to me, not to him. A week is a story you will be able to tell without hating yourself later. I won't make trouble, he said quickly. You already did, she said, not unkindly. You're here. He took the hit like a man who knows he deserves worse. I'll find a place. I just need time. And money, Mom added. And paperwork. And luck, I said. And less of that, she said, nodding at the place above his shoulder where ghosts hang. We ate coffee cake like a sacrament. We talked logistics, shelters, wait lists, halfway houses, rules, rooms for rent, scams. Mom printed a list, highlighted, circled, annotated like a teacher who believes in tests. My father took the papers like a student who never learned how to study. When we left, Mom hugged me longer than necessary. She hugged him too, brief, like shaking hands with an old news story. In the car, my father said, Your mother is something else. She is, I said. She always was. He nodded, then said what I was waiting for without knowing I was. There's another thing. Of course there was. There always is. He gripped the wheel like a confession needs torque. I might need you to sign something, he said. What something? A character letter, he said quickly. For court. Nothing huge, just me trying to get something back that's mine. What are you trying to get back? I asked, already feeling the string tighten. He swallowed. My truck, he said. And maybe my license. It's complicated. What did you do? He stared out the windshield at a world that suddenly had fewer lanes. DUI, he said. 2 years ago. I'm clean now, he added fast. But the system is sticky. They want proof I'm not a danger. And you want me to tell them you're not, I said. I want you to tell them who I'm trying to be, he said. Which is better. Because of you. Flattery and guilt. The two-step of 1,000 manipulations. I gripped my knees until my knuckles went pale. We'll talk, I said, because I needed to think. To call Noah. To ask a therapist who charges $160 if there is a word for being used as a ladder. We drove home in a silence that ranked all other silences. Back at my place, he went for a walk to clear his head. I watched him go, hands in pockets, shoulders hunched against a wind that wasn't strong enough to justify the hunch. I closed the door, leaned against it, and exhaled 3 months. My phone buzzed. Mom, do not sign anything without showing me. I'd love you. You're not his proof. Noah. Luggage? Then, before I could answer, I'm coming over with lasagna. I texted back. Come. I sat on the couch my father had slept on and looked at the suitcase he'd left behind. The zipper was closed. The envelopes inside rustled like a memory. That night, I opened them. The fat one. Final notices. A balance owed to a rehab program in San Diego. A collection letter with words like escalate. The thin one? A court date. Not for a DUI, for custody. Of a child. I read the name twice, 3 times. Ava. Age. 7. My sister. The room tilted. My life tilted. The word father tilted. He hadn't come back for me. He'd come back to practice, to collect character witnesses, to borrow a son so he could win a daughter. When the door opened and my father walked back in, cheeks pink from the cold, he saw the papers in my hands and closed his eyes, like a man who knows the bad part always arrives. I was going to tell you, he said. I know, I said. You just needed the right lighting. He didn't argue. He sat down. He looked older than his jacket, younger than his lies. Her name is Ava, he said softly. She likes dinosaurs. She thinks the moon follows our car at night. She deserves a father. So did I said. We sat there, me holding proof, him holding hope, the word weak ticking down between us like a bomb with a friendly face. When someone drops a bomb on your life, you expect the explosion to be loud, dramatic, fire and smoke obvious. But sometimes it's quieter. Sometimes it looks like your estranged father sitting on your couch, sipping coffee from your world's okayest copywriter mug, asking you to save him with your signature. That night, I barely slept. The words from the court notice looped in my head. Custody hearing. Minor child. Ava. 7 years old. A sister I didn't know existed. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of eggs hitting a frying pan and my father whistling. Off-key, cheerful, irritatingly at home. I walked into the kitchen, and he looked at me with that same half-smile I'd seen in the mirror for years. "Morning, kiddo," he said, sliding me a plate of eggs and toast. I sat down, but didn't eat. "So you weren't going to tell me?" He paused, spatula in hand, then sighed. "I was. I just needed you to see me first, not just the paper. People read paper and think criminal, addict, screw up. I needed you to see me. The me that's trying. The me that's asking for a letter," I corrected. He nodded. "Yes, that too." He didn't flinch. He didn't argue. He just admitted it like a man confessing to speeding, not stealing a decade of someone's life. I called my mother that afternoon. I told her everything. Ava, the court date, the letter. Silence poured down the line. Finally, she said, "Of course he did." "You knew?" I asked, sharp. "No, but I'm not surprised. Mark has always lived like the world was a revolving door. Walk out, walk in, and expect someone to hold it open." "What do I do?" I asked, suddenly 8 years old again, waiting for her to tell me what the right move was. "You do what keeps you whole," she said. "You are not his lawyer. You are not his alibi. You are not the bridge he burns and then asks you to rebuild. If you want a relationship with him, fine. But don't confuse it with responsibility. He left you. That was his choice. Don't let him make you his choice again." I cried after that call, quietly, into the towel I'd been folding, because she was right, and because I hated that I wanted to help him anyway. 2 days later, he asked me if I wanted to meet her. "She's amazing," he said, eyes lit up like Christmas lights. "Smart, funny, tough. You'll see. She deserves to know her brother." The word brother landed in my chest like a rock. I'd lived my whole life without siblings. Suddenly, here was a kid, 7 years old, who had been living her own parallel universe. A kid who shared half my DNA. Against every warning bell in my head, I said, yes. We met at a park near the courthouse, supervised, because custody hearings mean everyone's watching. Ava had curly brown hair, a pink backpack, and a dinosaur t-shirt with sequins that shimmered when she moved. She looked at me with cautious curiosity. "You're my brother?" she asked. "I guess I am," I said. She shrugged like it was fine. Then she showed me the contents of her backpack. Crayons, a plastic T-Rex, and a notebook where she'd drawn a family of dinosaurs. "This one's me," she said, pointing to the smallest. "This one's Dad." Then she pointed to a bigger dinosaur next to her. "And this one's you. I didn't know what you looked like, so I just guessed." Her dinosaur was green, strong, smiling. I wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. "Pretty close," I said, and she grinned. That night, my father sat across from me at the kitchen table, the letter draft in his hands. He'd already written one himself. Shaky handwriting, bad grammar, desperate tone. He wanted mine to sound better, more professional. "Just tell them I'm stable," he said. "Tell them I'm trying. Tell them you see it." I stared at the page, at the man who had left me and was now asking me to vouch for him, at the idea of a little girl who thought I was a green dinosaur brother. "I can't lie," I said. "You don't have to," he said quickly. "Just highlight the good. Everyone deserves a chance." The string pulled tighter. Noah came over the next day. We sat on my balcony with beers, the January air biting but refreshing. "So let me get this straight," Noah said. "The man who disappeared from your life is back, wants you to be his character reference, and oh, surprise, you have a sister you never knew existed." "Yep." Noah took a long sip. "That's not a sitcom. That's a horror pilot." I laughed, because he always made it safe to laugh when it wasn't. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "If I don't help, maybe Ava ends up in foster care. If I do, maybe I'm just enabling him." "Classic lose-lose," Noah said. Then he looked at me, serious for once. "You can't save the kid by sacrificing yourself. That's not fair. Not to you. Not to her." I hated that he was right. 2 days before the court date, my father cornered me. "They'll listen to you," he said, urgency thick in his voice. "You've got a job, an apartment, a clean record. They'll believe you. You're proof I'm not who I was." And maybe that was the cruelest part, because I wanted to believe it too. I wanted to believe he could be better, that Ava could have the father I didn't. But I also remembered the silence of my birthdays, the weight of the absence, the envelopes in the suitcase. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling again. The word brother rattled in my skull. The word father felt foreign on my tongue, and I knew that no matter what choice I made, it would leave a scar. The court date loomed like a storm cloud, even on sunny mornings. Every time my phone buzzed, I half expected it to be my father, reminding me, begging me, guilt-tripping me. Instead, it was usually Noah sending memes, or my mom sending recipes I'd never cook. But the pressure of that looming Tuesday wrapped itself around my ribs until breathing felt conditional. The night before court, my father paced my living room like a caged animal. His suitcase, perpetually half-zipped, sat against the wall like a witness. He kept running through what he was going to say to the judge, practicing lines like an actor who hadn't learned his script. "Just tell the truth," I said finally, tired of hearing the word stability stumble out of his mouth. "The truth won't be enough," he muttered. "Not without you." The string tightened another notch. Courtrooms are colder than you imagine. The air conditioning hums even in winter. The fluorescent lights bleach color from everyone's face, and the wooden benches make you feel like you're about to confess to crimes you didn't commit. Ava sat in the back row with a woman I assumed was her temporary guardian. She swung her legs, whispered something about dinosaurs, and smiled when she caught my eye. That smile nearly undid me. My father sat at the defendant's table, hands folded, hair slicked back too carefully, jacket pressed in a way that made me suspicious. His lawyer, a tired-looking man with coffee breath, whispered last-minute advice. The judge entered. Everyone stood. The hearing began. Ava's mother wasn't there. According to the paperwork, she'd relinquished custody during a relapse, and her whereabouts were unknown. Instead, the guardian spoke, outlining Ava's routines, her progress in school, her need for consistency. Then it was my father's turn. He spoke about recovery, about wanting to be better, about Ava deserving her family. He cried, not loudly, but enough to wet his cheeks. He talked about me, too, about how I'd let him stay, how we'd reconnected, how he wanted to be the father to Ava that he hadn't been to me. The judge turned to me. "Would you like to speak?" Every eye in the room landed on me. My father's, pleading. Ava's, trusting. My own, reflected in the courtroom glass, wide and tired. I stood. My voice shook, but I forced it steady. "I'm his son," I began. "He wasn't there when I was growing up. My mother raised me alone. For years, I didn't hear from him. Now he's back, and he's trying." I glanced at my father. His eyes were wet, hopeful. "But," I continued, "trying isn't the same as being stable. I've only had him back in my life for a week. That's not enough to erase a lifetime of absence. I don't know if he can be the father Ava deserves. I hope he can. I want him to be. But I can't promise the court that he is." Silence after that. Thick. Heavy. You could hear Ava's sneakers tapping against the bench. The judge nodded. "Thank you for your honesty," she said. My father's face collapsed into something between betrayal and despair. The court didn't give him full custody. They granted him supervised visitation rights, small steps, conditions, frequent reviews. Ava would remain in guardianship until he proved himself over time. Outside, he lit a cigarette, even though he'd promised me he'd quit. His hands shook as he cupped the lighter. "You killed me in there," he said, voice low. "I told the truth," I said. "The truth," he spat. "The truth is, I needed you. The truth is, you abandoned me in front of everyone." I stared at him, rage boiling. "You abandoned me 23 years ago. Don't you dare use that word on me." He flinched like I'd hit him. For once, I didn't feel guilty. He didn't come back to my apartment that night. I found his suitcase gone, the quilt folded neatly on the couch, No note, no goodbye. Just absence, familiar as an old scar. I called my mom, told her everything. She was quiet, then said, "I'm proud of you. You chose honesty. That's harder than choosing sides." Noah brought over beer and Chinese takeout. "You did what you had to do," he said. "If your dad wants someone to rubber stamp his redemption arc, he can find a notary. You're not it." Still, when I closed my eyes, I saw Ava. Her smile, her notebook full of dinosaurs, her little voice asking, "You're my brother?" The string hadn't snapped. It had just shifted, from my father to Ava. She was the one left in the middle now. And I realized that whatever came next, she wasn't the reason I had to stay in or out of his life. She was the reason I had to choose carefully, because she didn't deserve to inherit our unfinished war. When you walk out of a courtroom, you think the story's over. The gavel falls, the judge speaks, and that's that. But verdicts aren't endings, they're detonations. The debris falls for weeks, months, maybe years. After court, my father disappeared. He didn't text, didn't call, didn't show up on my doorstep with apologies or excuses. His absence was loud, the kind of silence you check your phone against just to be sure it's still working. Part of me was relieved. Another part, the part that had let him through the door in the first place, felt abandoned all over again. It was absurd, feeling abandoned twice by the same man, like I'd signed up for reruns of my own childhood. Mom said, "That's who he is. He runs when he can't control the story." Noah said, "Good riddance. Let the man ghost himself." But I didn't know how to put away the ache. 2 weeks after the hearing, I got an envelope in the mail. Inside was a piece of notebook paper covered in crayon drawings. Dinosaurs, a house, and stick figures labeled me, Dad, and Brother. The handwriting beneath it said, "Thank you for coming. From Ava." It wasn't from my father. It was from her guardian. She'd facilitated it, included a note of her own. "Ava liked meeting you. She asks about you. No pressure, but she'd be happy to see you again if you're open to it." I stared at the paper for a long time. The green dinosaur labeled Brother had a smile so big it almost looked forced. But it was my smile, or the smile she thought I had. I wrote back. Not much, just a few sentences. "I liked meeting you too. I'd like to see you again. Maybe we can go to the museum and look at the big dinosaurs." I mailed it before I could talk myself out of it. The museum trip happened a week later. It was awkward at first. Kids don't care about your existential dread. They care about snacks, gift shops, and whether the T-Rex could beat a Triceratops in a fight. Ava held my hand like it was obvious, like I'd always been there. She asked if I liked dinosaurs when I was a kid. I told her yes, and that I once made my mom read me the same dinosaur book so many times she hid it. Ava laughed, then said, "That's what I do with my books, too." In that moment, I felt something click. Not obligation, not manipulation, just connection. We spent 3 hours wandering exhibits. She insisted we buy matching dinosaur keychains from the gift shop. She picked the green one for me. "Because you're the big brother." That night, my phone rang. It was him. "Thank you," he said, voice low, almost ashamed. "For seeing her, for being there when I couldn't." "I didn't do it for you," I said flatly. "I know," he said. "But still, thank you." There was a long pause. Then, "I'm trying, kiddo. I really am." "Then try without me," I said, and hung up. Over dinner at her house a few days later, I told Mom about Ava. "She deserves to know you," she said gently. "But don't make the mistake of thinking you have to go through him to do it. She's not a bargaining chip. She's just a kid who drew you as a dinosaur." I laughed through tears. "You always know the right metaphor." "Years of practice," she said, patting my hand. Noah wasn't as encouraging. "Careful, man. This is how it starts. Today you're buying dinosaur keychains. Tomorrow, you're knee-deep in custody battles and bail money because your dad drags you into something stupid. Keep your guard up." "I know," I said, "but she's different. She didn't choose any of this." Noah shook his head but didn't push. He never did when he saw my mind was set. Weeks turned into months. My father remained a shadow. Occasional texts. "Doing better. Got a job. Miss you, kiddo." But no real presence. Ava, though, became more than a shadow. She became a constant. Weekend trips to the zoo, coloring books on my coffee table, her laughter filling the spaces silence used to choke. The fallout wasn't just pain. It was rearrangement. My father had tried to pull me into his orbit with strings of guilt and hope. But in the wreckage, I'd found someone else. A little sister who thought the moon followed our car. And maybe, I thought, That was the only piece worth keeping. If life with my father had taught me anything, it was this. Silence was never permanent. His disappearances always ended with a return. And sure enough, after nearly 3 months of spotty texts and vague updates, he came back. Not to my apartment this time, not to the diner or the courthouse. He came back through Ava. It was a Saturday morning when I got a call from Ava's guardian, a woman named Marcy, who had the kind of warm, steady voice you trusted instantly. "Your father showed up today," she said, skipping small talk. "Outside the community center. He wasn't scheduled. He wasn't approved. He just showed." My stomach sank. "He didn't cause trouble," she continued. "He brought Ava a stuffed dinosaur. She was happy to see him. But rules are rules. I had to cut it short. He wasn't pleased." "Did he?" I started. "No," she said firmly. "He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. But he pushed. He said things to Ava like, 'Soon you'll come home with me.' That's not how this works, and it upset her when I corrected him." I rubbed my temples. "And you're calling me because she asked for you afterward," Marcy said gently. "She trusts you. You're her anchor. But I need to know. Are you willing to keep being that for her? Because if you are, it's going to get harder before it gets easier." That afternoon, I picked up Ava for ice cream. She climbed into my car with the stuffed dinosaur, clutching it like a lifeline. "Dad gave it to me," she said proudly. Then, quieter. "He said I'd live with him soon. Is that true?" I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. "Not yet," I said carefully. "Grown-ups have to figure things out first. But no matter what, you and I will see each other. Okay?" She studied me with those big, searching eyes. My father's eyes. My eyes. "Okay," she whispered, holding the dinosaur tighter. And in that moment, I swore to myself I'd protect her from his chaos, even if it meant burning the last bridge I had with him. The next week, he called me. His voice was tense, coiled, like a man about to sprint. "They won't let me see her enough," he said. "They're poisoning her against me." "No," I said. "They're protecting her. You broke the rules, Dad." "I'm her father," he snapped. "I have the right." "You had the right with me, too," I cut in, my voice sharper than I'd planned. "And you left." Silence. Heavy. Then quieter. "I'm trying, kiddo. I need you on my side. Please." The strings again. Always the strings. "No," I said finally. "Not this time. Not if it means dragging her through the same hell you dragged me through." He swore under his breath. "So you're choosing them over me?" "I'm choosing her," I said, and hung up. When I told Noah, he shook his head, like he'd been waiting for this shoe to drop. "This is the second collapse," he said. "First was your childhood. Second is Ava's. Don't let him pull you down with him. You're not his lifeline. You're not his proof. You're her shield. Remember that." I hated how right he was. When I told Mom, she didn't mince words. "He's playing the same game, just with different pieces. But you don't have to play. Protect Ava if you can, but don't confuse that with protecting him. You tried once. It was enough. It's never enough for him, but it was enough for you." That night, I stared at the dinosaur keychain Ava had picked for me. I realized that my father had given me the same role he always gave everyone, supporting actor in his redemption story. But Ava, she wasn't a character in his story. She was the story. She was the one worth fighting for. So I made a decision. I wouldn't cut her out to avoid him, but I also wouldn't help him anymore. No letters, no testimony, no false witness. If he wanted to fix his life, he'd have to do it without borrowing mine. 2 days later, he texted me one line. "You'll regret this." I stared at it until the words blurred. Then I deleted it. Because maybe I would regret it. But maybe I wouldn't. And maybe, finally, that choice was mine to make. There's a strange quiet that follows cutting someone out of your life. Not the peaceful quiet of solitude, but the tense kind. Like the pause between thunderclaps. I waited for the next strike. For weeks, I kept expecting my father to show up at my door again, suitcase in hand, apology rehearsed. But he didn't. Instead, life started to reshape itself. Not around him, but around Ava. It's funny how fast kids fold you into their world if you show up. With Ava, there was no probation period, no hesitation. I was just her brother now. She introduced me that way to everyone. The barista who gave her extra whipped cream, the museum docent who explained fossils, even the janitor at the community center. "This is my brother," she'd say, grinning. And every time my heart cracked a little wider, because I was both new and permanent in her eyes. We built routines. Saturday mornings at the park, Wednesday night phone calls where she told me about spelling tests and new dinosaur facts. I bought her sketchbooks and watched her fill them with stories. Dinosaurs who went to space. Dinosaurs who solved mysteries. Dinosaurs who had families that never left. She always drew me as the green one. My father didn't vanish completely. He left traces, like cigarette smoke on a jacket you thought was clean. A missed call here, a voicemail there. Always variations of the same theme. I'm better now. I need you. Ava needs me. Don't turn her against me. I didn't respond. But sometimes Ava asked, when do I get to live with Dad? The first time she said it, I froze. That's complicated, I told her. Because grown-ups make rules? She asked. Yeah, I said softly. Because grown-ups make rules. She thought for a second. But you'll still be here? Yes, I promised. And I meant it with a weight I'd never felt before. One evening, months later, I ran into him outside a grocery store. He looked thinner, more worn down, his jacket fraying at the seams. He smiled when he saw me, tentative, like a dog approaching a hand it once bit. Kiddo, he said, can we talk? No, I said, sharper than I meant to. Then, after a pause, not unless it's about her, and not unless it's through the court. His smile faltered. You really hate me that much? I shook my head. No, I don't hate you. That's the problem. Hating you would be easier. I just don't trust you. And I won't let Ava go through what I did. For once, he didn't argue. He just nodded, eyes wet, and walked away. Watching him go, I felt not relief, not anger, just tired. Bone deep tired. Mom asked about Ava every time we talked. She even met her once at a park picnic. Watching them together was surreal. My mother, who had carried the weight of absence for decades, now smiling at the little girl who carried half that absence forward. She's bright, Mom said afterward. And she's lucky, because she has you. It was the closest she came to saying she approved of the mess I'd chosen to wade into. Noah, ever the realist, summed it up over beers one night. You know what's wild? He said. You got what you wanted all along. Not a father, a sibling, someone who sees you as family without you having to prove it. You skipped the man who kept failing you and went straight to the person worth showing up for. I laughed. So what? I'm the green dinosaur in her story forever? Damn right you are, he said, clinking his bottle to mine. Time passed. My father drifted further into the background, popping up in legal updates, or through Ava's questions, but never again in my daily life. Ava, though, became a fixture. She grew taller, sharper, funnier. She called me when she lost a tooth, when she aced a spelling test, when she wanted to know if dinosaurs could swim. Answer, some could. And every time I answered. Because I could. Because I chose to. One night, after dropping Ava off at her guardian's, I sat in my car and realized something that almost made me laugh. I had spent so much of my life waiting for my father to come back, waiting for him to be the person I needed. And when he finally did, he wasn't. He never would be. But in the wreckage of his return, I had found Ava, and she wasn't the string he'd tried to tie me down with. She was the reason I finally cut the string altogether.